Thought this would be a little bit easier to get my thoughts out than writing a paper, so hope you enjoy my reflection on the topics from this semester that I attended. So one of the first topics that we talked about was assessment, and assessment was a really big thing I worked on this semester, whether it be formatives. I can't really create my own summatives in my county, but being able to reflect on them and see how they assess students' knowledge and if they assess them correctly and in a way that shows what they actually know is big to me. But I have been working on little ways in my classroom to create assessment and figure out how students can become better with assessment. So one thing that I've implemented this semester was assessment maps, and each of these maps, you'll see the one on the right here, is for the unit, and what it has is all of the topics for that unit that they'll see on the assessment. So students are given this map at the beginning of each unit. The goal in the end, when I get a little bit more organized with this, is to have students either pick one or a couple topics and first have them make a hypothesis on what they think they will see in that topic or how that topic will be used in the unit. And then towards the end of each unit, I want the students to be able to pick a question from the assessment mat or a topic from the assessment mat and create a question that can be used on the assessment. I've talked to some people about this, and I think it would be a really good idea so that the assessments are more thoughtful in them, and they actually assess what students actually know rather than just random questions. Supporting students during time of change was the next one I went to, and this one was a big one during this semester with the change with COVID and the racism going on in the U.S. Just being able to understand what kids are going through. In this seminar, we went through that Nora Flanagan TED Talk, which I thought was really awesome. And in my classroom, I'm really big on students are humans first, rather than students are just numbers. So I do check-ins like this a lot, but I did this one recently with my students. And the first two questions were just fun questions just to kind of get them going. And the third one was really to my digital students, because I have a lot of students which they don't have a camera on in class. And I just wanted to know the reason. A lot of them, it was very sad. Some of them had reasons like my brother's also on Zoom, so it'll be loud, blah, 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 blah. But there were some that were like, it makes me uncomfortable, and I'm afraid I'm going to be judged for the way I look on camera, or it's distracting. And I think a lot of teachers and administration don't think about this type of thing when you're thinking about a 13, 14-year-old being on a camera screen all day. And so I like to do check-ins like this and questions like this where, one, I can learn more about them as humans. It tells me whether they're an outgoing person, whether they're shy, or and it usually tells me something about their family too, so that I can make that relationship there and know that I'm supporting this human and not just a number. The next one was differentiated instruction. Now, for differentiated instruction, the way I think about it is a little bit different than just like splitting kids up by scaffolding. One example that I have on the screen is a couple pictures of it. Is I paired students up together to finish an assignment, and students were to like assign themselves partner A, partner B. Partner A's problems were a lot easier than partner B's, but I think by doing this, you're allowing students to see where their levels are, and then you also are able to give yourself a little bit more freedom to be able to jump around, because the students that are the higher achiever ones that have the B problems are more likely to help the other students that they're with. So I find that doing this is big. I also like to, when I create the assignments for them, start small and then throughout the assignment get bigger. So what I mean by that is if we're trying to create an equation for a linear function, well, there's two parts that they need for it. They need to be able to find the slope first and then the y-intercept. So they need, first, let's talk about that first part, that slope, and get really good on that. And then let's talk about the y-intercept and then get really good on that, and then put it all together to create the equations in the end. I think this is really big for some of the low-level students, so that they're able to piece it all together. I've also talked to Dr. Boggs recently about number sense and doing more number talks with students at the beginning of the year next year, which I think is going to be super important. I find that students know the processes in solving in mathematics, but they have trouble with numbers, whether that be multiplying, adding and subtracting negatives, whether it be dividing. They just need that basic concepts that we don't even think twice about. It struggles for them and allows them to feel a lot of discomfort in the classroom, and so then they kind of just give up. So one of my goals is to get that base really big next year and then be able to grow on it throughout the year. Pedagogical content knowledge. For me, when I first started teaching, obviously I was a restaurant manager before, so I dealt with numbers a lot, but it was more spreadsheets and finances, not necessarily Algebra 1. But I found that throughout last year and this year, the very fundamentals of algebra can be big to know. And so I've worked really hard to be able to understand the underlying concepts that students may just brush over, so that they're able to see, oh, this is why this happens, and not just, oh, it's a formula, I'm going to use it. The why behind everything, I think, is super important for students in all ages, in all classrooms. I definitely want to continue learning more whys for higher level mathematics as well, so that in the future I'm able to go into a high school classroom and teach a different type of math. Throughout this year, I've really had a change in ideals about how students learn, and that's been big for me in the fact that students really construct their own knowledge. Discussion is a really big concept that I've been trying to include in all classroom activities, whether it be purposeful or just something thrown in there. So a couple of weeks ago, I ended one of my classes in a discussion, and it was an agree-disagree piece, and I had them move around the classroom. One side is agree, one side is disagree. And in order to get through it, they had to prove their choice. So they weren't allowed to just sit back and let someone else do it. They had to prove why they agreed with someone using mathematical thinking, mathematical terms, or just thoughts that they had on that. And then the last topic that we talked about was power, privilege, and marginalization in schools. And we talked about an article where a teacher was under fire for something that happened in her classroom. And excuse me, I see this happening a lot. And I think it comes down to having trust and believing in your teachers. I find this is something that my principal does not have. And it's really frustrating that we're not trusted enough to have the freedom in our classroom and do and say what we think is right. But on the other hand, throughout this year, I've really grown a lot more confidence in being able to address students when things happen, such as we saw in this article. I also, this year, actually last week, something happened in my classroom where I did have to address a student about a comment that was on the line of being racist. And at the beginning of the school year, I would have said I would have never been able to do that. But I've really found more confidence in being able to talk through them why it's not right what they said. And I think a lot of times, especially the middle school kids, they say things they don't mean necessarily, and they don't even think about how the other person may have interpreted it. So I think teachers just need to be trusted more in doing, to be able to figure out and doing what's right in the classroom. So with that, I want to thank you for everything you've done for us this year. I know it's been a weird one, but can't wait to see you at graduation.